Welcome back to the Bar Exam Toolbox podcast. Today we are talking about overcoming perfectionism during bar prep as part of our Quick Tips series. Your Bar Exam Toolbox hosts are Alison Monahan and Lee Burgess. That's me. We're here to demystify the bar exam experience so you can study effectively, stay sane, and hopefully pass and move on with your life. We're the co-creators of the Law School Toolbox, the Bar Exam Toolbox, and the career-related website Career Dicta. Alison also runs the Girls Guide to Law School. If you enjoy the show, please leave a review on your favorite listening app and check out our sister podcast, the Law School Toolbox podcast. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can reach us via the contact form on barexamtoolbox.com, and we'd love to hear from you. And with that, let's get started. Welcome back. Today we're talking about overcoming perfectionism during bar prep. Specifically, we will talk about some common perfectionist pitfalls that students may fall into while studying for the bar exam. Then we will talk about what to do to avoid these pitfalls. We will also go through some general tips for approaching the bar prep process and the bar exam with the right frame of mind. But first, let's talk about why it is so important to approach bar prep and the bar exam with a non-perfectionist mindset. In other words, why is it that approaching bar prep and the bar exam with a perfectionist mindset may hinder your ability to pass the exam? Well, practically, you cannot really perform perfectly on the bar exam. The exam is intentionally too difficult for that. So if you are trying for a perfect bar exam score, you are setting yourself up for failure. You are also forgetting your ultimate goal, to pass the bar exam. And you may be sabotaging your ability to meet that goal by spending unnecessary time fretting about perfection. With that, let's move on to 5 common perfectionist pitfalls we see students fall into during bar prep. Keep your eye out for these pitfalls during your study process. If any of them sound familiar, listen to our review of what to do instead. Number 1. The first common perfectionist pitfall is waiting until you have mastered all of the law before doing practice questions, particularly practice essay questions. In reality, you may never feel like you have completely mastered every subject that may come up on a bar essay question. And if you are waiting until you have finished studying the law to do practice questions, you are likely missing out on valuable practice time. The bar exam tests your ability to apply the law, not just regurgitate it. So make sure that you are incorporating practice questions into your bar prep process from the very beginning, even if you have to use your notes or an outline to answer questions at first. Number 2, relatedly, another perfectionist pitfall is trying to become an expert in every bar exam essay subject. This is too daunting of a task for most bar students and not at all required to pass the exam. Specifically, make sure that you are not spending a disproportionate amount of time on tricky, unfamiliar essay topics, such as secured transactions or wills and trusts. These topics will show up, at most, on one essay question on the exam. Keep that in mind as you allocate your time between them and the MBE subjects. Number 3. The third common pitfall is giving up on practice questions when you don't know the rule and immediately reaching for your outline or the sample answer. Now, we said that it is great to do some practice questions with your outline as you begin studying. But during the second half of your bar prep process, don't use your outline as a crutch and miss out on valuable learning opportunities. Instead, when you get a question where you don't know the rule, practice what you would do in that circumstance on the actual exam. Make up a rule that is reasonable and apply it. Remember, you will probably see at least one question on the bar exam where you aren't quite sure of the rule. So if that situation comes up in your bar prep, use it as an opportunity to practice what to do in that situation on the exam. Number 4. The next perfectionist pitfall is trying to answer every MBE question correctly or otherwise failing to think strategically about your MBE approach. For example, if you know that you often miss real property mortgage questions and you are tight on time on the MBE, don't spend extra time trying to answer a page-long real property mortgage question. Devoting extra time to an MBE question you will likely get wrong is not a good use of valuable time. If you encounter this situation in your practice or on the exam, consider skipping the long, difficult question, filling in a guess, marking it, and returning to that question if you have extra time. This way, you are sure to hit all of the questions that you will likely answer correctly on the MBE. For all you know, the last MBE question on the exam is an easy torts negligence question, and if you spend 5 minutes trying to figure out the long mortgage question, you may not make it to the easy torts question at the end. Number 5. Okay, we have made it to our last perfectionist pitfall: failing to practice the MPT under real timed conditions. The MPT, or the performance test, is a unique bar-specific skill. It requires you to complete a task in a very short amount of time. It is testing not only your reading, analysis, and writing ability, it is also testing your ability to work under a pressing time crunch. Given the time constraints, your goal on the MPT is to write the best answer possible in the time allowed. This answer will likely be very far from perfect, and it will likely be very far from an answer that you would give under real-world circumstances if you had double the time to complete the task. So accept that your practice MPTs will also be far from perfect. Don't psych yourself out so much that you avoid practicing for the MPT. The only way to improve your performance test score is practicing under the timed conditions. Now that we've talked about some common perfectionist pitfalls, let's review our list of what to do to avoid these pitfalls. First, do practice essays and MBE questions before you know all of the law. Getting a question wrong during your practice may lead to getting a similar question correct on exam day. In particular, you may be more likely to remember a particular rule and correctly apply it on exam day because you missed a question regarding the rule during practice. Second, be smart about allocating your study time between essay subjects and the MBE subjects. You need to be familiar enough with all of the essay subjects to work through one essay question in each subject. But you need to be far more familiar with the MBE subjects. Devote your study time accordingly. Third, practice answering essay questions where you don't know the law. Specifically, practice making up a reasonable rule and analyzing the facts under your made-up rule. This will help you answer a question where you don't know the rule on exam day. Fourth, strategize your approach to the MBE. If you know that real property mortgage questions are one of your weakest topics, and you see a page-long mortgage MBE question, consider filling in a guess, marking the question, and returning to it if you have time at the end of the exam. Finally, do at least one practice performance test a week under timed conditions. Don't get discouraged if your first 2 or 3 performance test answers are terrible, and start giving yourself extra time to write perfectly edited answers. The performance test is testing your ability to work under pressure and against the clock. The only way to get better at working quickly is to practice under timed conditions. Now that we know some common perfectionist pitfalls and what you should be doing instead, let's go through some tips for combating the perfectionist voice in your head. First, if you see yourself falling into perfectionist pitfalls, remind yourself to keep the big picture goal in mind: passing the exam. Make the phrase, "passing, not perfect," your bar exam mantra and repeat the phrase to yourself as you study. Tip number 2, remember to take care of your mental and physical health during bar prep. Mentally, make sure that you take breaks from studying to practice mindfulness. Taking time out of studying to take a few deep breaths and recenter yourself may seem like a waste of time, but it is not. It will make your studying more effective. Your brain can only absorb so much information at a time. So if you find yourself going down a negative perfectionist wormhole, stop and recenter. Stretch, meditate, take a short walk, or practice a breathing exercise. Whatever helps you regain focus so that you can approach the rest of your study day with a good mindset. Physically, remember to eat healthy food, exercise, and get enough sleep. Skipping meals or sacrificing sleeping hours for study hours does not lead to effective studying. You need to be well fed and well rested to do the kind of deep working you must do to prepare for the bar exam. Exercise is also a proven win-win for the brain. It releases endorphins, which naturally boost your mood. It also leads to better sleep and often better eating habits. Now, this does not mean that you need to spend 3 hours a day at the gym during bar prep, but taking an hour study break for a brisk walk or run around the neighborhood could be a positive use of your time. Finally, if you are finding it tough to let yourself practice before you know the law or under timed conditions, set a goal to write a terrible practice answer every day. In other words, take all of the pressure off. Writing a terrible practice answer does not mean that you will fail the bar exam. It means that you are taking advantage of a valuable learning opportunity during your bar prep process. From there, focus on the positive. Particularly, focus on your progress during the study process rather than what you are still missing or doing wrong. If you are studying effectively, your practice answers are likely improving, even if they are still not perfect. Make sure that you are acknowledging the improvements. Students often focus on what they miss in an effort to learn that material for next time. And you should review what you are getting wrong so that you can get it right if you see that material during the exam. But make sure that you find some way to track your progress as well. For example, use an MBE prep tool that helps you track your progress on questions that you answer correctly. With your essay and performance test answers, think about how much better your answers are now than the ones you wrote a month ago. Are you using IRAC or CRAC more effectively? Are you catching issues you would have missed before? Celebrate milestones in your progress. Let yourself be encouraged and use positive self-talk to combat negative thoughts and your inner perfectionist. Hopefully, these tips will help you conquer your inner perfectionist as you study for and take the bar exam. And with that, we're out of time. If you enjoyed this episode of the Bar Exam Toolbox podcast, please take a second to leave a review and rating on your favorite listening app. We'd really appreciate it, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything. If you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself or Alison at lee@barexamtoolbox.com or allison@barexamtoolbox.com, or you can always contact us via our website contact form at barexamtoolbox.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk soon.